council workshop for Monday, March 27th at 7 o'clock-ish. Apologies for the late start. We did have 2 meetings preceding this, including our budget discussion, and we ran over a little bit. Thank you for accommodating the late start. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated. Any errors or omissions from the agenda is presented. Hearing none, will someone move adoption of the workshop agenda? Moved by Councillor Back, second by Councillor Ma. Call the question on the matter. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Circulated with the package are 2 sets of meeting minutes from the February 6th and February 13th council workshops. Any errors or omissions in those minutes as presented? Councillor Pope, you have an error you should address?
Yes, I actually carefully read the minutes this time, and I noticed that there were some omissions, and I've noticed it's a bit of a seems to be a bit of a trend. And the omissions, I'm just trying to find it, are quite pronounced in some cases. For example, with the discussion on the, you know what, I really need to find my papers first, and then I'll be able to speak to it a little more.
I have no problem with us just not adopting the meeting minutes at this point, and then encouraging you to connect with staff to clarify changes that you want to propose, and then we'll deal with it the next time we have a workshop.
Okay.
All right.
On the agenda, can I suggest we start with 3.2? The one that has the
the only thing is, kind of wanted 3.1 to inform 3.2 to some degree. Okay, but sorry, is that, I'm just going to deal with the other issue first. That's okay. Is that satisfactory that we'll table the minutes for now? We'll have staff discuss with Councillor Pope any concerns, or that obviously workshop minutes aren't a verbatim. We have the recordings for the verbatim, but
you're correct, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out that's what we do. We take your information, we'll go back and verify against the video as to what actually transpired. And sometimes it's just the way it's been summarized. Yes, sometimes it is an oversight. Sometimes we get it right. So that's the audio record.
the next time we have a workshop, it'll come back and be meeting minutes.
If you'd like to present to us what you think are the problematic points, we'll give it a little bit. Send it to us by email anytime, and we'll get it straight away. So fresh.
I don't think our next workshop's for at least 2 or 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, but
We got some time.
we'll turn it around.
Okay. And so as in, to address your issue, I think I would still like to have 3.1 in front for all of the guests, if that's possible to inform it. But I hear your point. There are definitely more people here for 3.2. So I'm going to continue then. Reports from councillor staff, item 3.1, development approvals process review. And again, I'll be handing that over to Mr. Milburn to start.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Your Worship, Council. I won't be saying much. I'll just be introducing a fine team we have that'll be giving the presentation tonight, Nancy and staff around you tonight. This is indicative of the importance of this process for the organization as a whole, and how it will involve not just one team, but many teams in the organization. For context, development application process review has been discussed in the public domain for some time in the last few years. The province initiated some research and consultation with local governments, which Mel will go into a little further. But I just wanted to set the stage for you that there is a conversation at the provincial level and at many local government levels, in many local governments, to look at the processes, in particular, that how we can look at the processes and streamline our development processes to support housing development in communities, housing diversity and choice. And I'll just mention, the province has made some legislative amendments in the recent past to try to create some powers for developments, including amendments to public hearing rules and the minor development variance permit rules. Council has taken advantage of some of that already. And we anticipate the province will continue to look at legislative amendments, in particular around helping local governments achieve their objectives for housing. Furthermore, Council, through the targeted official community plan review, identified streamlining development approval processes as a means to implement priority actions. Those actions being achieving town and village centers, prioritizing rental, social, and supportive housing, and increasing housing diversity. So with council's direction in mind, staff have prepared a presentation, consideration tonight and discussion so that we can receive feedback and move forward on this work. I'd like to, with your worship's direction, pass this off to staff for presentation, approximately 10 minutes.
Thank you.
So Mel Norton and Neonil Lola.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. My name is Amel Norden and I'm a planner here with the district. And I'm here with my colleague, Neonila Lola, manager of business and economic development, and we'll be presenting this evening.
Mel, I'm just gonna stop you. This is just one of those rooms you have to project in. That's the microphone up on the roof for the hybrid and the recording for the meeting, but I'm gonna have to get you to be nice and loud.
Do you want me to repeat or?
I think we got it.
Maybe move in a little bit too.
So this evening, we'll be presenting the scope, timeline, and budget of a proposed development approvals process review for the district, which I'll also refer to as DAPR. And our presentation is 13 slides and will take about 10 minutes. So before I get into the details of the proposed DAPR process, I wanted to provide some context for the need of this type of review. Some good work has been done by industry experts and stakeholders on the important role that local governments play in the approvals process, including the province's 2019 approvals review report. Many municipalities, including have been exploring opportunities to streamline approvals processes, improve the customer experience, and meet community goals. And a brief scan of other municipal reviews and process improvements is attached to the workshop for reference. On this slide, I've included some relevant district reports and policies which speak to the need for increased housing diversity in the district and the importance of streamlined and consistent development approvals processes to deliver housing that are those key objectives. While the district's corporate plan is currently in draft form, council has identified the importance of fostering a resilient organization with continually enhanced community engagement services and enhanced digital infrastructure and systems, all of which are essential to the delivery of quality customer service to the community. The delivery of OCP objectives, council priorities, and an excellent customer experience will be central to the development approvals process review completed for the district, the scope of which we'll cover in this presentation. But I'll provide some background on the district's approval processes and customer experience. The district responds to a high volume of inquiries and requests related to development approvals each year. These processes are far-reaching and impact staff and service delivery across the organization. We know that many of our customers have an excellent customer experience and tell us that they're happy with the service provided by the district. However, there are some exceptions related to complex development sites or with customers who are unfamiliar with the permit processes. And they may experience some challenges and express concerns related to processing times and or navigating the approvals process. We understand that some of these challenges are a result of an increasingly complex regulatory environment, building and submission requirements, and multi-department reviews. These types of challenges are not unique to the district, but are being heard throughout the region, as indicated in the province's 2019 report. Early conversations with staff highlight the need for a review of systems, processes, and regulations, and staff input will be integral as we move forward through the DAPR process. It's also important to note that while public consultation is critical to provide opportunities for meaningful inputs and an iterative process through the development review, it does add time and complexity to the process. But with that said, the district's DAPR process will explore innovative methods to enhance existing consultation processes and provide equal opportunity for public participation with diversity, social equity, and inclusion in mind. So we just heard about the variety of public and staff feedback about the approvals process, but what is development approvals process and what is the purpose of development approvals process review? Well, development approvals process refers to all the operational steps and decision-making in relation to a building or planning proposal. This could include a permit for tenant improvements for a commercial unit, a renovation or construction of a new house, or a more complex development proposal. The approvals process begins at the initial inquiry district staff receive from the owner and applicant, all the way through the building permit or planning process to building construction and post occupancy. And a development approvals process review, or DAPR, looks at all of these processes end to end in order to identify any challenges and process gaps, identify opportunities for improvement, and recommend changes for the intended outcome of better serving the community. Here at the district, staff are proposing a comprehensive DAPR, which will be supported by a district-wide staff working group and a third-party consultant. A stakeholder engagement plan is central to the DAPR process and will be developed by the district's consultant in coordination with staff. The engagement will include targeted outreach to key stakeholder groups, including mayor and council, existing district leaders and applicants, and the building and development industry. I'll now hand over to Neela to review the DAPR guiding principles and key objectives.
Thank you, Mel. There are 4 core guiding principles behind the DAPR review. First and foremost, of course, is delivery of an excellent customer service experience. We are a service organization, and at the forefront of our work day to day is delivering that customer service experience. So that will be definitely the top guiding principle for the DAPR review. The second guiding principle is deeply rooted in the official community plan, and particularly our economic development objectives. Development projects, commercial tenant improvements, as Mel mentioned, they are all working to create jobs in the community, and those projects are the ones that will help us achieve our official community targets for job growth. And so facilitating the processes that support these is a guiding principle of the review. The third guiding principle really goes to the core business of our organization. This is really housing delivery for our long-term community needs. And so a key principle of the DAPR review will be to facilitate and support those services that we deliver on a daily basis and long term. And fourth and final guiding principle is really rooted in our culture as an organization. We are looking to demonstrate innovative and creativity solutions through implementing forward-thinking processes and systems that serve our customers. In addition to the guiding principles, there are 3 key outcomes we're looking to accomplish with the DAPR review. The first one is to streamline the development approval process with the goal to increase the timeliness and effectiveness of projects coming forward, leading to improved predictability and transparency in terms of time, project time, and cost for our customers. The second key objective is to improve collaboration between the various departments across the organization that are involved in the review of development projects across the continuum. And of course, what that will lead to is further accountability to our end customer. And the third and final objective that I would like to present here is really to improve our customer communication. Of course, what that will lead to is improved and better customer satisfaction outcomes, which is what we're really targeting with the DAPR review. And thank you. I'll hand it back to Mel now to tell a little bit about our strategic approach.
Thank you. So as previously noted, staff recommend that the district undertake a comprehensive, in-depth review to make some substantial changes to our processes. This will take approximately 1 year to complete and report back with the recommended bylaw, policy, and process improvements for council consideration. However, a strategic approach is proposed to ensure that we can start making some immediate process improvements without having to wait for this comprehensive review to be completed. As will be covered in upcoming slides, staff have already identified some short-term priority actions to streamline the approval process and alleviate some known challenges. So over 2023 and 2024, staff will be bringing forward a series of reports to council on some completed and proposed quick wins or short-term priority actions. Some recent examples that council will recall include the recently approved delegation of minor DVPs to staff and the proposed streamlined approval process for outdoor customer service areas. While the focus areas will vary, these are just some examples of types of immediate process improvements council can expect to be brought forward over the next year. 3 distinct but interrelated areas of examination will underpin the DAPR process and help direct staff effort as indicated by this graphic. Systems innovation will look at how we can utilize the district's digital systems and tools to improve the way we provide information, communicate with customers, and track applications. Process redesign will review all the steps in the review and approvals process to improve the way that we process applications, streamline application timelines, coordinate and communicate among staff. And with regulatory streamlining, we will look at existing regulations and policies and whether they can be amended or improved to provide increased clarity, flexibility, and streamlined approvals. As noted previously, central to the DAPR process is delivery of OCP objectives, council priorities, and an excellent customer experience. In the next 3 slides, we'll provide an overview of some completed process improvements and short-term priority actions within each focus area. So with systems innovation, we've already made some improvements over the last few years, including online inspection request services, online applications, and improved tracking of inquiries. Some upcoming priority actions relate to improved permit data collection, additional online application additional online application improvements, and better access to information. In terms of process redesign, some accomplishments to date include improved customer user guides, how-to guides, streamlined approval processes for minor DVPs and TUPs and outdoor customer service areas. Some short-term priority actions include streamlined subdivision reviews, improved processes and guides, and access to development approval information, proposal information. In terms of regulatory streamlining, we streamlined regulations for coat houses and simplified regulations for outdoor customer service areas, which I mentioned. And some short-term priority actions include research and scoping work related to zoning bylaw review and a review of single-family utility and groundwater standards. A complete list of all the short-term priority actions within each focus area are outlined in the staff report. So the DAPR has a one-time consultancy budget, which is included in council's budget deliberations. It'll be funded by the Development Stabilization Reserve, which are monies that come from application fees. We discussed the timeline earlier in this presentation, which is anticipated to take approximately 1 year for the in-depth review. And implementation of the review recommendations is expected to take another year or 2 after that. While the 1-year review is underway, implementation of identified quick wins or short-term priority actions will move ahead, and staff will report back to council with updates along the way. And once a consultant has been retained, staff will return to council with an update and a proposed engagement plan. As mentioned earlier, this work will involve departments across the organization, and district staff are fully committed to the DAPR process. And here this evening, we have representatives from planning, engineering departments, facilities, digital services, and economic development. So we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was just gonna start off. I mean, I remember when DAPR was initially proposed by the provincial government that we would be reviewing different aspects of development that are causing delays within the system. And overwhelmingly, they were focused on the permitting process at the time. All the comments from the housing minister at the time, I met with the housing minister, were focused on permitting. And I went back with the question to them saying, but our permitting is almost entirely based on your processes. It's entirely based on your environmental regulations, your mechanical, your fire, your, you know, it's our application of your policy. And so I guess what my question is there a feedback loop in this to advise the provincial government how they're impeding the process? Because right now, the way that they've set it up, it makes it look like it's the municipality's fault. And the reality is overwhelmingly the delays are caused by the provincial government's process. And so, you know, when I think back over the last, so I've been in this job for 4.5 years, we've only actually delayed 1 permit That one permit that we delayed was Handsworth. It was non-housing. It was to make it so that Handsworth, sorry, politically delayed was Handsworth, because we wanted to make sure that the artificial turf field could fit on the other part of the property. We haven't politically delayed any of the developments that have come through the process. And so the permitting process, which is driven by provincial policy, is overwhelmingly what's defining the time to go through the process. So my heavily loaded rhetorical question is there a feedback loop to the provincial government to make recommendations to them on how they could improve the process for us?
Or are we going to include one in this process?
We're gonna do it anyway.
We're gonna do it anyway.
That was loaded enough. I'm gonna send that to Mr. Miller.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and members of council. This is our process. So council is guiding the process and the scope of the work. And what I'm hearing is an interest in making sure that we communicate to the province where we do have gaps or challenges with provincial regulations. And I think that's completely within scope of this work. I would completely agree. I can't say the province will respond in a timely way to our suggestions, but I can say that as we go along, as we learn about feedback, and we're not just talking about, this is all staff. We're one of those pieces of the puzzle. There's private utilities that have a significant component in conversation in the subdivision process in particular, like BC Hydro and Fortis and others. And there's also, of course, as you mentioned, regulations at the provincial level, especially around building, fire code, and those you mentioned, as well as the environment standards. And that is actually a decision-making process of the province that determines when we issue a permit or when we can approve a rezoning. So there's also Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. There are many, many ministries and agencies involved. And I think that's all within scope in terms of how we can do our job collectively, because the province is sending messages and signals that they think housing is important, housing diversity and choice is important. So we need to be able to signal back where we see challenges as well. And we see some improvements being made at the project.
Unsolicited advice, we'll send it anyway. Councillor Miri, Councillor Hanson, your comments?
Well, your opening statements about, wanting to create more housing diversity, and this review is going to help expedite that, I guess is one part of this review, or maybe it's the whole part. And the parts that I'm interested in may not be included, which causes me concern. I think there needs to be an audit done, quite frankly, on all of this regulatory processes and what kind of timeline it's adding. I think that should have been done a long time ago. But I'm more interested in maybe the smaller operator, the little guy. For example, Dikoff, as an example, and you talked about streamlining our TUP processes, our temporary use permit processes. Dikoff had made an agreement with the district for 2 3-year temporary use opportunities on a piece of land we own in Maplewood. And it took them 3.5 years to get through the process just to build a prefabbed 4-wall and a metal roof building to sell geraniums in the district. And so before they opened their doors, they were already in the second term of their TUP, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they actually had a contractor. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the resident who does a minor renovation with some really nice cabinets at $400,000, and it pushes them into a threshold where they're not adding any bathrooms to their home, but they're gonna get a bill for $9 grand from the district to hook up a new sewer connection because the threshold hasn't been updated in 25 years. And then I'm worried about the contractor who lives in the district, has 4 businesses, and feels like even though they're not new to the process because they build houses here all the time, there's a log jam that slows them down so significantly on, homes that are taking 2 years to build, and costing upwards of $2.5 million, that they just can't get through the building department. Because when we started with our new council in December, we had presentations from all of our departments, and engineering came forward and said, we're full. We are full. We have a problem maintaining staff. We have a problem getting staff. We don't have a manager in our building department. I don't know, do we?
We do.
Oh, we do. We just got that person, but it has been over a year. We are doing too much. So, upstairs is like, okay, we got all these plans, and yours is one of them. But downstairs, we don't have enough people to pull it off. And we're jammed up. So where is this gonna address all of that? Because we just lost a business who came in and talked to our planning department about a business that they wanted to open down off Main Street. And after they talked to the department, they're gone. They're not gonna open a business here. They're not gonna take over an existing zoned unit. I have a business that has been in operation for nearly a year without a business license because we said one thing. And then after they put all their equipment into the building, we told them that they were actually something else. And we wouldn't give them a business license. Like, we have some significant issues. And I could fill a room with people coming in here to sit and explain their perspective. I've actually had staff meet with a bunch of those people. And I don't know how this regulatory to review that the province has given us so we can build more and more and more, because the solution to our problems of affordable housing is to build more. Supply and demand, supply and demand, supply and demand. It is not working. It's absolutely not working. We have never been more expensive. We have never had more people displaced. We have never had more people not be able to come into this community. So supply and demand simply does not work. It is not working. So I don't know how this regulatory streamlining process that the province has created to get us to build more faster is going to help that contractor, that business. I don't know how that's going to work. I've got a couple that own a business over on Pemberton with 2 little kids. They've spent $250,000 trying to get a business in the district. They're not even open. $250,000 in construction costs. They are not even open. That is what we should be talking about tonight, not how we can build more expensive housing.
If I can just.
And I'm just gonna say one last thing. I do need to understand with a review of the regular, or the department, the planning department, if that's what this is. I don't know if the planning department should be leading the review. And I also would like to know what the consultant's gonna do. $125,000 for a consultant isn't a lot of money. It seems like a drop in the bucket when we have such a huge issue. And let's not even get started talking about the zoning bylaw. That's another disaster.
There's a lot in there, but I was just
Yes.
gonna say
I'm gonna go get-
specifically also, how much of this is backwards looking, how much of this is forward looking? Are we gonna be going through the last 5 years of completed projects and talking to the people who have gone through the process? Or are we talking to people in stream now going forward? Mr. Milburn.
Thank you. Yeah, and I won't respond to all the comments made. I just wanted to make a couple points to that question. One of my comments with respect to the streamlining identified in the official committee plan target review was simply quoting what council's direction to staff was. So I am just saying that we're returning this information to staff or process because we have directed council to do so. In terms of various complaints and concerns that were raised, we're happy to address those concerns, respond to that and look at that in detail. This is probably not the forum to get into those kinds of issues, those specific circumstances in detail. What I can say, and I think the question to staff is the scope of this work comprehensive enough to deal with those issues, such as those that are raised by Councillor Murray in terms of concerns from an individual business owner? And I would say, yes, this scope is an end-to-end review, not purely looking at housing construction, but looking at tenant improvements, looking at business applications to the district for permits and planning applications, to try to support them and help them through the process. That does not mean they will get an approval at the end of the day. And I want to be clear, this is not a DAPR process to ensure approval. This is a process to ensure efficient and timely review and clear expectations amongst all parties so that hopefully they get an answer that they understand, it's comprehensible to them. It might not be the answer they want. They may get their zoning turned down by council, or they may get a different direction from council, or their building might not comply with the BC Building Code, the minimum health and safety standards that we have to enforce. If those things are not met, they don't get their approval, but hopefully through the process, it'll be efficient, it'll be timely, and they'll have an answer that they can understand and comprehend and respond to and adapt their proposal in the future. So yes, it's about a learning exercise, learning for staff. It's not purely planning department. I just want to say that this is not just a planning exercise. This includes buildings, it includes our engineering team, who is heavily involved in the development process, especially around subdivision as well as single family construction. This is heavily involved with our other teams, such as our IT services and so on. So it's an integrative approach across the organization to look at these process streams. And then the question, Your Worship, was, is it backcasting or is it forecasting? I think we have to learn from the input we've received. We do check in with our customers in a robust, comprehensive way every year, as well as hearing feedback on a regular basis through council members and through our customers. And we want to respond to that feedback and adapt our processes and provide recommendations to council that is in consideration of what we learned from that feedback, so that we can create processes going forward that are more efficient, that are seen as more fair, that are seen as more comprehensive, and where people feel engaged and understood in the process. Again, they don't necessarily get the approval they want, because we have to meet these standards. It is a standards process, and it's an enforcement process in some circumstances when people don't follow council's directions. We do have to enforce the rules. This process, though, is not about that enforcement side. It's about the application submission to council, our review of those applications, and how we can do it in an effective way.
Thank you. I've got Councilors Hanson, Ma, and Back. Councilor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wish you luck in this undertaking. I heard a lot of what Councilor Mary said, and I can say that in this election cycle, when I was out speaking to voters and district residents, I heard more than ever a frustration with the operations of the district. And I say that without any criticism. I'm sure that there are factors involving complexity, and they're set out in your report, COVID and many other factors that have made it all more difficult. But it really was a theme that I was hearing a lot from voters, was a frustration that delay and a lack of timeliness and complexity, lack of definitiveness in the answers. And frankly, just a sense that we, to the extent that your presentation began with a statement that we were a customer service organization, I think there's a sense. God bless you. There's a sense that we're not living up to the mark on that, and I say that without any criticism, and this is just where we're at. One question that I had, I mean, it seemed to me that this consultant, and Councillor Murray mentioned it as well. I mean, if there's a potential for some innovation and improvement, perhaps this consultant could be important. And there may be people who have expertise and track records in these types of undertakings. Is there any intention to shortlist these consultants and perhaps involve council in their selection? Because I, for one, would be interested in who it is we select and what their experience is and whether they do have a track record in this type of an assignment, which I think we'll all agree is a pretty challenging assignment in this day and age. So I'll leave it at that.
I'd love to get Mr. Stewart's thoughts on that, on council directly being involved in the hiring of consultants and what that message that sends, or whether that's constructive, or whether it should be the CAO that picks the consultant rather than the planning department, or
planning reports to the CAO, for instance, that might be effective.
What we do more often than not, when we have large and multidisciplinary plans, we create a steering committee. The steering committee is usually made up of either managers or GMs. So it's not just one department doing it themselves. It's really there's a lot of balance and checkoffs on that. If that's a concern, we can certainly apply that approach to this. And I think it would happen anyway. It's not usual for council. You don't actually have the authority to hire anybody. But that doesn't mean that we can't go through a process and ensure that one of the first things we do is we bring this person to a council meeting to talk, have a chat with council about what they're hoping to get out of this. And any thoughts or input that they've got.
Councilors Ma and back, Councilor Ma.
While being responsive to district residents, I believe council needs to maintain at a high policy level, just provide direction to staff. As a new councillor, and I hear that a lot, I'm glad that this review is occurring. I have heard feedback from industry and residents. Our staff are doing a good job, but there's, as most people would say, there's always opportunity to improve. My question, we talk about excellent customer experience. Need help wrapping my head around that in terms of how feedback will be gathered and whether it be, evaluated by an external third party, and potentially what metrics will be in place for that. I think that we kind of see a benchmark and see improvements.
Mr. Gilburn, response?
I really appreciate that. And if you ask any individual staff member, they are really, and they're trying very hard to provide excellent customer service. So council should know that. They're very proud of their work. That does not mean that we don't get feedback from folks about, hey, how can we improve? And we really respect that, and we want to hear that feedback. So I appreciate that kind of feedback from council as well. Just to remind council, we deal with about 30,000 inquiries and about 17,000 inspections every year. So council does hear some, but we're actually processing the background. It's that duck in the water where there's a lot of movement going on in the background, a lot of permits getting issued. So I really do appreciate that feedback. In terms of how we can ensure that we're benchmarking and comparing ourselves, both I think to other communities, but also how we're improving against our current situation. We have quite a bit of historical analysis that's been done on our customer service surveys, which is done by a professional firm every year, provides feedback on how we can do a better job. I think that's a useful tool, and it's one of the kind of early wins. I think I'd like to come back to council to show council sort of what those questions are that we ask on an annual basis, what the average is in terms of the response and what we see, and where our customers are saying they'd like to see some improvement. So the council can see how we're benchmarking against ourselves, right? How we want to see continuous improvement over time in a way that is measurable and reportable. So I definitely want to come back to council with that information and look forward to doing that as part of this process.
Thank you. Councillor Back.
Thank you. I'm really glad that this work is going to be undertaken. I know after the 2018 election, it was one of the first comments that I made with what I was hearing during that election campaign, and it was largely what Councillor Hansen has talked about this past election campaign. It's just hearing from people about how challenging it can be to get things done, whether it be a simple renovation or a subdivision. I know somebody in Lynn Valley who's been trying to do a simple subdivision for several years now, and it seems like different requirements get thrown at this person. And so, I think being able to have clear requirements and so that people know exactly what they need to do and the boxes they need to check off when they're taking on those kind of projects. And so I'm supportive of this from that small level up to some of the more, bigger comprehensive development applications that we see. And yes, it is about being able to bring housing supply on. We're in a housing crisis, and that's only going to get worse if we don't continue to build the right type of houses in the right locations in our community. And a big part of that is doing what we can do internally to move some of these processes along. So I am quite supportive, and when I look at what some in the report, what some of the other municipalities that have scanned have done, I think there's a lot that we can be doing. Digitization, I think, is a huge one. I know there's a lot of software solutions out there that are geared right at what we're trying to do in some of these areas. So those are my initial comments.
Very much. Councillor Pope.
I'm also really pleased to see this comprehensive review process in place. I remember actually just as I was starting the campaign, and Mr. Stewart had an information session, and he said, we're we're looking at ways to streamline the development approval process. And I thought, oh, good, that's great. And so 7 months later, we have this in front of us, and I'm feeling like there isn't a real sense of urgency about it. I heard you say that there were quick wins that you'd be looking at, which is great. But I do think, based on so much of the feedback that you have already received and the reviews that you get, you probably have a really good idea already of how to speed things up effectively. And going to Councillor Back's mention of the housing crisis, I'm wondering if that can be moved up in your scope to make it a priority to speed up, or in some way focus on streamlining the developments that are focused on housing affordability and as they relate to the OCP action plan. And so that's the only thing I would like to see. I do wonder why, again, it has to take so long to go through this process. This process looks good to me and very thorough and all of that. But again, I think I'd like to see like things happening in the next 6 months to a year, and that kind of an outline for that, especially as it relates to affordable housing.
Thank you. Council, response, Mr. Milburn?
Two quick thoughts. One, staff currently place a priority outside of a DAPR process. Council, just want to assure council staff place a priority on social and supportive housing projects, so they go to the top of the pile. That means, of course, that the other projects that are just going through in chronological order, they may have concerns that other projects are going ahead in them. But council has indicated prioritization occurs for social and supportive housing projects. So that's occurring right now. In terms of that feedback on things, we do have a list in the report, and it will certainly be that kind of feedback. Of those quick wins, and those noted, or any others council wishes to provide, are there some that are really important that you'd like to see a response back to try to tackle that issue before the vote? In terms of quick wins, we're happy to receive that kind of feedback too, and we'll be adjusting staff's schedule to accommodate whatever direction we receive from council tonight going forward.
Yeah, that's great, because I noticed that you did say you're looking at streamlining the Coach House program even further, which I think is a great idea, because there's lots of things going on in that regard that I have previously mentioned, like having a template for coach houses that's pre-approved so that it reduces the burden of the approval process for homeowners and developers. And I was also wondering, when you say that they're already prioritized, but that's if a development is specifically targeting or is completely about affordable or supportive housing. But I'm guessing it doesn't really include anything in regards to, say, a development proposal that comes to us that also as part of that, as part of the community amenities, that it includes affordable housing or social housing. Is that correct?
Your worship, every project will typically be contributing in some way to social and supportive housing, either through a cash CAC contribution or through actual units within the project. So we can't prioritize every housing project that's before us. And so we've been prioritizing the ones that are 100% social and supportive housing projects. The rest are going through the approval chain as they would by chronological order and the readiness of the applicant in terms of presenting all the information that's required for council's needs.
So one of the things, for example, that I'm wondering about is and I think Councillor Back may be speaking to this as well, but the issue of like, could we offer as an incentive to a developer that if they include, some type of affordable housing in their project, then we can offer a speeded up process kind of thing. Like those kinds of things, could those be looked at without waiting for, this long process to be finished?
Yeah, it's certainly something we can have a conversation about. I just would caution council any kind of, and I know this isn't your intention, but any kind of perception of like selling a zoning for a benefit, we have to be cautious about. It is a negotiated approach. One of the key things that we've tried to do to assist with process efficiency at the end of the day, because we're always thinking about not just about quick wins, but how they're getting through the process, is having that kind of feedback from council at an early stage in applications. And we have an example of it tonight, of an example where we're looking for that kind of feedback so that applicants can take that away and tailor their project to meet council's needs, so that when it does come forward, they're not coming back multiple times, right? In a regular council meeting and having bylaws reheared back one time, and they're having a project that's consistent with council's direction. So that's just an example of some things that we do. I mean, some folks might say that that's increasing the process, right? Because now you're coming to council, but we've found that this particular way of approaching, having those early inputs, both from the community and also from council, we're able to see projects that are more successfully aligned with council's direction when they do get to council in a regular council meeting.
Councillor Forbes, your comment.
I had a couple of questions. Who is the committee? Who is on the committee of council?
It's not a committee of council. I think what Mr. Stewart was suggesting was there's an internal staff committee that directs the consultant.
And that's what you're
It's not
referring
a
to?
council committee, yeah.
Well, it actually said committee of council. That's why I was asking, who is the committee of council?
Adriana clarified for me that it's the full council.
Oh, it's council of the whole.
Yeah.
So when we're meeting right now, this is council of the whole.
Yeah.
Or committee of the whole.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
confirm that. A couple of years ago, I don't even know if it was that long ago, but when the province sent out and said, send us back what you think you can produce in housing, they sent a number back and everybody said, be careful what you send back, because it's going to come back and bite us. And so do you remember what that number was? Because on page 27, we're saying that we need 7,050 new units by 2031. Do you remember if that was the number that we gave the province?
I'll look to my staff to see if there is a housing needs report number they can flow. Your worship, this, I think, Councillor Forbes, you're referring to the housing needs report the province required.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those numbers were a reflection of really the community plan direction that council had endorsed previously, as well as some specific analysis around core housing need and folks that were really in that kind of low income bracket, really in need of significant subsidy. So those numbers are identified in the housing needs report. I think what you're potentially referring to, yeah, and staff, I'm just looking this.
Dragging the puck so that they have an opportunity.
Okay. Oh, we didn't include three. Okay, so, and I just want to be cautious. What I might do is just recirculate the housing needs report to council, because there's multiple numbers, right? There's a number with outstanding units.
It's a province one number. That's the only number I'm interested in, what we reported to the provincial government.
Sure. So in this staff report, it refers to a number of 7,050 new units. That doesn't include, and that's units to be occupied in the future. And that doesn't include units that council's already approved but are under construction. Okay, so that was the number provided. It's in the staff report.
I remember all those little
Right.
changes, and you had to really define what
Very
that,
specific, that's correct.
yeah, what the units were. I'm afraid I have to add to what's already been said around the table. Before my last term, I heard about how bad and how timely the district is in permits. During my first term, when I campaigned, I heard the same thing. And then after I was on council, I got phone calls about the same thing. This time around, when I was campaigning, I heard the same complaint, and I'm still getting phone calls. So to read in this report that we mostly have positive feedback, I don't know who you're going to for your positive feedback. And I know that we don't always, as counselors, get the positive feedback. We usually get when something's wrong. But we have a reputation that's been going on for years, that we're a difficult community to get anything done in. And so I'm interested in who the stakeholders are that you're going to. And I would really be interested to make sure that we go back to people who've gone through the system already and get their feedback, as well as currently who's going through it. And like Councillor Murray said, I've heard a number of stories where they were told this is what they need to do, and then when they come to get the permit, they're like, "No, you didn't do this right," and we, you know, so it really needs a close scrutinization, because this isn't just, you know, for a year or two, we've got this reputation. We've had it for a long time. So it'd be really nice if we could get to the bottom of that, and clean that up a little bit. You said the permit access online for some trades right now is at 30%. What's holding us back from getting 100%?
This is for the online application.
Yes.
Yes. We have had it turning here. We have the comment on essentially the license application process.
Mr. Milburn, so we have, we're gradually rolling out online permit applications starting with the simpler ones, air quotes. We have, of the permits that are online now, we begin to finish that up, I think it's May. About 30% of the applications that are coming in are coming through the website. We can't force people to use that process. We make it available to them, as well as the traditional approaches, you know, paper forms and coming in person. But we want to make people aware that the application process or application forms are there, make sure the information is clear on our website, and then promote it as an opportunity for them to, you know, apply from home, apply from this business, make it easier for them to access those applications, which are honestly much easier to fill out online than they are in PDF or in a piece of paper.
So how are we promoting that? How is it getting out there?
Sure, working with our communications department. They just started rolling out in January, let's say, and they will finish in May, everything except for the more complicated building permits. John Marone, our digital services group, is working with our communications group on the engagement plan through social media, through basically every avenue they have. And if you have ideas for how we can reach more people, property tax notices, brochure, that sort of thing, we want to get the word out, and we'd love to make people more aware. As I say, it's a much better experience to apply for the permits online. It also makes things more efficient on our side of the fence. If information comes in digitally, it gets right into our systems instead of having to type it off.
When they come in the first time and they talk to the staff at their initial discussions with the staff, will say, you know, this is one of the ways you can do it.
Yeah. Our website still needs work, even just for normal things. I mean, I type in something that's very specific, 1 or 2 words, and I come up with 10 things that have nothing to do with what I typed in. So I know that IT is still working on our structure, but I mean, it really needs improvement so the keywords are recognized. And that would help, I think, with the permitting as well. Transparency is really important to me, that we are transparent about our processes, our decisions, and the information that we need to get out to the community. And I know, Dan, you've mentioned before, we discussed it before, about the dashboard. So it's been mentioned again in this report, what kind of timeline, so we can get some kind of a dashboard up.
Your worship, I believe Mr. Jordan answered that question at the council orientation, which was this year, I believe was the answer he gave.
So we're
I know
getting
the organization is working toward this dashboard, or essentially feedback loop to the community about how we're achieving our overall corporate goals, how far we are towards those, and aiming for this year.
So that brings me back to Mr. Stewart. Are you still planning on doing a quarterly type of brochure that lets the community?
That's under consideration, right?
I thought we'd already decided on that.
Oh, just how many we're going to be able to do that. Is it going to be 3 or is it going to be 4?
Okay,
And what is the role of the tax notice have? So there may be some overlap there.
okay. And one last question. Some of the comments that I get, I wanted to ask you, is part of the problem when there's delays or changes, are we understaffed in the inspector department? Do we have enough inspectors, or are we
I
short
think
staffed?
that's a province-wide problem. Mr. Milburn?
Yes, your worship, I get peppered with requests from headhunters constantly, looking for staff at the building inspection area. I think we want to keep our inspectors happy and doing a good job. And because there's a lot of demand out there, especially for folks that have their registered building official designation. So they're level 3, they can inspect all those complex buildings as well as.
So are we understaffed?
We are currently staffed at about 90%. And so we've just had a little over a year, as Councilor Murray mentioned, to recruit that senior type position. And we will continue to have challenges in those areas, but there's lots of strategies we can work on, such as internal mentorship, and growth. We have had a lot of success by moving staff up through the system of through our clerical team, as well as planning assistants and so on, into building inspection, into plan checking and building inspection. So there's lots of things that we can do to try to encourage that growth within, because we're going to continue as challenges recruiting at the senior level.
Yeah, no, I know that's a problem at the senior level. I wanted to know what degree we were a little bit short-staffed right now. And my emphasis would be on whether it's mentorship or whatever it is we can do to get that increased up to a full staffing level. Thank you.
The easiest way to describe that is a constant trip. As soon as we hire somebody, somebody else leaves, so we're always a couple down.
I was just gonna, I know I'm gonna sound like the company man when I say this kind of thing, but.
You look like it. Gotta get a more casual.
So Tracy from my office deals with a lot of the most complex ones. Somebody's just not satisfied with the customer service they've received and they come, well, that's it, I'm calling the mayor's office. And I gotta tell you, the number of times that that the calendar can be very adequately explained why there was a delay. It absolutely dwarfs the number of times that there's actually some systemic barrier to somebody getting approved. And so, in a lot of those cases, first of all, they'll say, I've had my application in for 2 years. And you go and you look and you see, oh, they've actually had their application in for 3 months. But they intended their application, like they started the process a long time before and took a lot of time, but they actually didn't have their application in until a much more recent time. And it's very frequent that happens, that I'll get somebody who will grab me on the side of the street and say, this project's been going on forever and ever and ever. And I'll go back and look at the dates and they just submitted their last set of paperwork the week before, and which is why it's on their mind at the moment. The other aspect is, where we also have a number, I mentioned this at a meeting recently. We have a fairly affluent community. We've talked about that tonight, particularly and it's the more affluent side of the community that's the ones talking about the redevelopments and pushing the boundaries. When somebody comes forward with a proposal to build at 100% of the max capacity of that site, the complexity to make any adjustments to that project slows those projects down. Oh, if they had built it to 80% of the site, then we can maybe make a little adjustment here, a little adjustment here. They're coming in maxed. And then the expectation is that we're going to vary our max. And we go, no, you have to go back and redesign, this proposal. But of course, they're working for a customer that's demanded that it maximize the usage on the site. And so it makes it very complex and you end up with delays because the project's maxed and it's hard to make adjustments to it. And the number of times, like if we were doing 100 degrees in a year, which probably not last year, but a couple of years ago, that was more or less the standard that we would take. There would be 100 houses that just went full replacement in the course of the year. Only about 4 or 5 are actually coming to my office to talk about the concerns, and probably 3 of them are wanting to talk about the stormwater management plan. This is the complexity to build basement in North Vancouver now. It's become very complex for very good reasons. We need that storm drain capacity in storms, and we can't be filling it up with private water leading up to the events. But it's caused a lot of problems for the developers. You hear it constantly. I started my project way back when, and since that time, the regulations have changed. Almost all of them are talking about the stormwater management plan and how they have to accommodate their stormwater. but there's very good reasons for it. I'm not saying that there's not absolutely legit infuriating delays at times that are inexplicable, where the ball is passed from one party to the other party and it goes 3 or 4 months without getting a response back, and everybody's confused as to why it took so long. That happens. But the number of times that it is simply a disagreement over when the application was submitted, or a disagreement over your obligation to manage their stormwater, or a disagreement over whether we will vary the maximum size of the lot to accommodate their new needs. That's the bulk of the feedback that I get in my office from.
Can I just say that I can understand what you're saying, and that's a possibility. But the other place we need to improve is communication. People have left it with somebody on staff and they're waiting to hear back, and they don't hear anything back. And they try to get a hold of that person, and maybe they can't get a hold of them. And then I get the phone call. And I'm saying, Betty, they're saying, Betty, can you look into this? And they tell me the story, and then I look into it, and bang, they got a phone call within a day. So, you know, the communication as well, if it got slowed down, if they're looking into something, whatever, communicating that to people too, so that they don't feel they got lost in the murky world of municipal government.
That happens. Councillor Murion, I think I saw another hand. Councillor Pope, Councillor Murion.
Well, just on that, especially when we were going through the stormwater management plan, I don't even know where it is. I think it needs to come back to council so we can sort of update council as to where we are with it. But over the last year, if you went on the website, it said, the stormwater management plan said under review on the website. So if you were building a house and you were being impacted by the stormwater management plan, you didn't even have an ability to understand what you were needing to address because it was under review. So we've been talking about communication for, I don't know how many councils, 4, nothing has changed. I asked the question, what is the consultant doing? I think we need to have an understanding of the scope of what the consultant is going to be actually doing for $200,000 for a project this in depth over a year. And I think that's where council needs to sort of have another way into this, because I see this as not, I mean, there's the little guys, the single family, the relationship between engineering and planning, the ability for us to have the capacity to pull off this work, the downstairs pushing projects down. Council, you know, we're quick to put up our hands. Well, I'm not, but everybody else, you know, well, lots of people are. It's then you got to push it downstairs. And then you've got to have people out in the field actually pulling it off. You know, ask yourselves, have you ever done a reno on your house? Go through the process.
I ran for council.
So then you do a reno, and so much has changed, really not. So then you do a reno in your house, and you, as a counselor, you can't help but ask questions, and you wonder why an inspector is going from Capilano to the Seymour and then back to Capilano to inspect. Just, it's things like that that create these problems. We talk about using this to speed things up. 342 Mountain Highway, 46 units, rezoned 2 councils ago, flipped once, still waiting. They had to revise their building permit because it actually expired in 2020. So we gave them a new one. They're still selling pre-sales. Emery, is it half done? Rezoned, process started in 2016, rezoned in 2018 in June, half done, 411 units. 2029 Dollarton, flipped twice, rezoned in 2015, flipped once, flipped again from the original concept of market into rental with a variance on parking. So just because you zone it, doesn't mean it gets built. And council needs to understand that. Our process is just the zoning. Once they get the zoning, that's the land use change. It's up to the market to determine whether or not that project will go forward, or the economics of that company to be able to push that project forward. It is not just we rezone it so it will be built. That just doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they hold the land. If you look right now, there's several consolidated properties that are for sale right now in the district. You know, $5-6 million properties. There's properties down on Mountain Highway. There's some on the Parkway that are being sold because the economics right now don't work. Or the development companies have leveraged, you know, so much they gotta pull back and wait because we have no idea what the world's going to do in the next month or day or week. So just because you speed up that process for rezoning applications doesn't mean you will realize housing. And I think that there's some articles coming out from the city of Vancouver because of what's happening along the Broadway corridor. And out of 450 spot zonings along that corridor, you know, there's a fraction that have been held up in the building department. They can't get the permits because there's a backlog. And I believe there's a backlog in the district as well. And I think the backlog's existed for years and we are good at reacting, but we're not very good at being proactive and looking at ourselves to see what is going on and what's happening, which leads me to my question. I think some of the best people to interview, and lots of them are gone, but it's always nice to have a fresh set of eyes in our departments, is talking to our staff in the field and talking to our staff within the departments, but not getting them in a group and saying, so what are your thoughts? Giving them an opportunity to confidentially give their thoughts to a consultant, not to staff, not to the directors, not to management, not to any of us. But we do have staff that talk to us, staff that are gone, staff that are still here that talk to us. And we need to give them an ability to say, what's happening? What do you see? What is your experience? What could we do differently? And I remember when we, prior to Mr. Stewart coming back from West Vancouver, we had James Ridge that was our CAO, and he did create a system within the municipality that gave staff an opportunity to provide that confidential feedback, and it was helpful. And I think we need to go back to that place. And we need to talk to the guys that are digging the ditches for the sewer lines that you don't need to connect because you're not putting a bathroom in, you're just putting some nice new cupboards in. That's what we need to talk to them about because they're the best ones to show us where those log jams are. You know, we can go out to the Home Builders Association and some other ones I won't mention and ask them what they think. And of course, they're going to say, well, of course we want to speed things up. It's our business. Why wouldn't they say that? And I think talking to us and our experience with people that call us directly, because they do all the time. And Councillor Hanson, I've never seen in 27 years the complaints rise the way they have in the last 4 or 6 years. And I think it's because we don't have the capacity and we're doing too much. And I've never heard in all these years that I've been at this council table, staff say, we can't do this. They're not going to say it. Engineers did. 2 engineers said it. 2 engineers said, we can't hold back Mother Nature and we're full. But it's very difficult for public servants to say, we can't do this. It's what they do. And I think we are beyond our capacity, quite frankly. So if we want to have that excellent customer service, and I do believe staff give excellent customer service, but they are overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed with us upstairs going, yeah, we want this project, we want that one, let's do this, let's do that. These aren't little projects. These are cutting roads open that were built 40 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, and reorganizing them. It is a lot of work, and I don't think we recognize how much. Plus, we are losing our corporate memory. We have a brand new staff, and they are skilled, but they are green in many respects, and they're learning their way forward. And they don't have the ability or the luxury of having those senior, and I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but some people that have been around longer than others. And I'm looking at you. And because everybody in this room, except for Jennifer and Dave, you've been here a little bit. But these two people right here are our longest serving district employees. Our Parks Department, our longest serving employee is 5 years in our Parks Department, where the vast majority of them were 35, and they all retired at once. So I think we have a bigger problem than just this. I think we have to understand who we are, what we can do, and what that level of customer service means to everyone. But they all have different needs. And yeah, I think this is a big, massive job. And I think we need to have more conversations about this going forward.
I'm gonna go to Counselor Pope. I did just want to say we're an hour and 25 in on the first item, and we do have guests for the second item.
They are loving the gripping
And
conversation.
I'm sure it is edifying to them to understand what our views on Dapper are and everything else, but Counselor Pope.
In the interest of time, I'm going to reserve my comments for another time.
Thank you. Any other council member wishing to address Dapper? I think you've given a lot of feedback to you. I know you've written copious notes, Mr. Stewart. Did you want to address any of those or go back and have a meeting with staff and report back?
Yeah, I think council's identified some real issues and concerns about making sure we've got the scope right and are involving. We'll talk as a group. And then,
Let's have another conversation.
I do think the role of is very important because it gives you the confidence that you're getting an outside third party view of the process as opposed to just internal stuff is important, but we also need to balance that with somebody that's got some experience in place.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is 3.2. This is the Lionsgate Village Center and Purple Area Development and early input opportunity for proposed development at 1634 to 1748 Capilano Road. Presenting today, we have development planner Robin Hay.
I think to set up and maybe I'll stay.
Yeah. Go for it, Mr. Milburn.
Your Worship, we have come to council as staff in the committee format. Providing updates periodically over time. In this particular case, this will be a focused conversation on Lionsgate. And we've also come to council our significant preliminary applications. We've gone through that preliminary feedback from staff. And we're looking, and the applicant is looking for some feedback from council at this early stage. Whatever feedback we receive today, I just want to assure council, this is not a public hearing. We're not having the full debate. This is a very early conversation. But applicants and staff find it very helpful to have that kind of early feedback so that the applicant can then tailor their detailed application so that when it comes forward, it responds to the concerns that council may have or responds to questions that council may have that they would like to see answered. So that's the purpose behind it. It's a tradition that we've done off and on for many years, even before my tenure. So I hope the council finds this opportunity useful. I know the applicant is eager to listen to the feedback and respond to it in time, but this will not be a conversation back and forth with the applicant tonight. It's just staff will present, hear that feedback. The applicant is here to listen as well, and then we'll take that information away so they can prepare their detailed application.
Start at the neighborhood level, but then we're going to get pretty specific to this property.
That's right. And the reason why we do that is to ensure that council, of course, receives an update on how things are progressing in the center. So you can put into context the conversation with the detailed application. And also the application that we have before council is a significant one. This is a significant feature. It's on the east side of Capilano Road. It's one of the first big projects in this neighborhood in that regards. And so we're very happy to bring this forward to council tonight.
Councilor Beck, did you want to ask about the process or?
Yes. I just wanted to clarify because this is the first time we've done one of these in this format.
Well, usually it's in council, yeah.
And we used to have options that we had to land on. What are you looking to get out of
We
it?
are early enough in the process that it's really more, some of those official early input opportunities have a very developed plan with designs. And so they're just at a more advanced stage. We're having more of a conceptual discussion.
And also just to assure council, this doesn't circumvent any of those public processes that we still need to. This is just a step process. We certainly are going to see public feedback. Thank you. And I'm really happy to see that the system is up and running. This is Robin Hay, and she'll be giving the presentation to council.
Good evening, your worship, and planner with the district.
I'm gonna, again, nice and loud. That's what you're aiming for on the roof there, nice and loud.
So my presentation this evening is 10 minutes long and it will cover two topics. So first, I will provide an update for the Lionsgate Village sector in terms of development projects, as well as amenities and infrastructure negotiated as part of rezoning applications or required by district bylaws. Secondly, I will provide an update regarding a pending major application at 1634 to 1748 Capilano Road. This workshop is an opportunity for council members to become more familiar with this project at this early stage. Input provided by council will be passed on to the applicant and assist in the preparation of a detailed application. So starting off with the development update, we will note on the context map here that the green sites are built and occupied. The blue sites are approved or under construction. The orange site is at the development permit stage. The purple sites are at the rezoning stage, and the yellow site is at the preliminary application stage, and that's the site we will talk about shortly. So since the adoption of the OCP in 2011, council has approved through rezoning approximately half of the anticipated demand for housing and a third of the anticipated demand for commercial space in the village center, including the local grocery store in the recently constructed Park West development. You can see the village center here outlined in red and the peripheral area outlined in blue. Significant amenities and infrastructure have been provided. Some notable improvements include LL Park, which will be increased to nearly 4 times its original size once completed. Construction of the permanent park is anticipated for 2024, but in the meantime, a temporary public space, including a dog park, is open. The Lionsgate Community Center, which opened in April 2022. In addition to the internal amenities, there is a district-owned public plaza with play space and outdoor seating. The pedestrian and cycle greenway connecting Fullerton Avenue to Curlin Road has been provided. A new neighborhood park is to be provided as part of the approved launch redevelopment site. A new public plaza and bus shelter fronting Marine Drive have been provided on the Park West development. The Park West development has also provided a separated bus priority lane on Capilano Road. It is also noted that the district recently acquired 1801 Capilano Road, which will facilitate the constructions of the Crossroads Road, providing direct access to the community center and through to LL Park from the east side of Capilano Road. Other transportation improvements that have been provided include the new traffic lights at Capilano Road and Cronin Road, the new Lionsgate lane, the roundabout at Fullerton Avenue and LL Place intersection, all of which improves the ability to move into and out of the neighborhood. As the village center is built out, significant municipal infrastructure, including water, drainage, and sanitary system, are being upgraded to accommodate new loads associated with the redevelopment. So this model here gives a sense of the developing structure in the village. On the left, you see the International Plaza highlighted in red. And then next on the screen, you see the proposed development, which we will discuss shortly. Across Capilano Road, you see your Capilano Residence development, or also known as LARCO. To the south of that, you will see the recently constructed Park West development. And then next to that is the recently approved Travelodge site and the Sentinel development, which we within the district. Council approved developments in the village center have either generally met or exceeded the indicative building heights as outlined in the implementation plan, while adhering to the overarching urban design vision of locating the highest buildings near the intersection of Marine Drive and Capilano Road. Overall development, as well as amenities and infrastructure, is emerging in accordance with the OCP implementation plan and the peripheral housing policy. Yeah, so before I transition, is there any questions that anybody wanted to raise on the update before moving on to the proposal?
Can you just, oh, I have a question. Can you just show that very expensive lot that we just bought that we're gonna turn into a road? Where is that? We have a map.
One, it's not, I don't,
I
Slide
do
deck.
have an aerial image on a slide coming up. I can flip to that now.
Is it the crossroads?
So this lot here is 1801 Capilano Road. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
And so the crossroads is we'll come through Hope Road here through the site, and then this is the public plaza, the Larco development. So the crossroads will.
So where are those cars going?
Well, yeah, the cars will be going through Lionsgate Lane, but it's also an important pedestrian connection to get through to the community center and through to Belle Isle Park.
So I just,
also the vehicles leaving the neighborhood won't have to go through Cap and Maroon. They'll be able to come to Garden and route.
I just think we have to talk about that. I really do. We're trying to make this a livable community and it's got certainly some challenges. I just don't know why we're, I think council needs to understand a little bit about how that's going to orientate, who's going in, who's coming out, and where are they actually going. You know, this was supposed to be a sustainable plan, and you know, the lack of services in this area is a real loss. I think we've missed the boat. I think we missed the boat on Marine Drive. I think we missed the boat here, and I think we missed the boat on Mountain Highway. We have no services, no commercial in Denna. It's the biggest development on that road, and there is not one service or commercial piece of property in that development. It's astounding to me.
But to be specific, I mean, there is a grocery store coming. It's agreed to and contracted. There's a gas station there. There's a Capilano Market there. The biggest service gap.
Gas station.
There's no school. That's the biggest service gap that's in that area.
Well, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. I think that this part of the OCP was to create that word that is buzzing around now, vibrant community. And I think we paid attention a lot more to the density than we did about what kind of uses. And I think we just sort of hoped that the uses would miraculously appear and it would become a complete and sustainable community. And that didn't happen. We waited a long time to be able to look at minimums and maximums of commercial units. We've only just recently in the last year and a half discussed that, and I don't even actually know where that is. We hope that the development community will bring forward these kinds of uses without really pushing that negotiation and saying, no, we need small units. I mean, we didn't even have in Lower Capilano enough room to put a coffee shop in, for God's sake. Not even enough space for a full-sized coffee shop in that area. So I
need to be very specific though, because we have a library, we have a rec center, we have daycare.
I'm talking about commercial. I'm talking about commercial retail.
Okay, so what's missing in the commercial retail?
We have none.
Okay, but there's Capilano Market has a coffee shop in it. There's a grocer coming in. So what specifically is missing?
I guess I'm just being general, Mayor Little, but if you look in Lower Mountain Highway, we don't have a grocery store there yet. We've zoned it. We don't know when it's coming. We have 3 towers and a bunch of townhouses and not 1 inch of commercial space anywhere. The majority of the street is taken up by condos that again have no commercial, maybe a little tiny accessory. But we're talking about these big projects and we again react instead of our proactive Marine Drive because we didn't limit the spaces on the pre-zoned properties along Marine Drive to get rid of the car dealerships. We lost a huge opportunity and now we have a lot of banks and a lot of professional service at retail grade. We are also dealing with a lot of daycares because we allow daycare in every single zone, taking up valuable retail commercial space where.
Are you talking about this proposal right
Yeah.
now? Can we just limit our
And
comments
general
to?
Yeah, so I think that we should really take a close look at our existing zoning, what we're trying to achieve. Yes, we can have daycare, but we can have retail too. We need the services to support these communities. So if they're not driving out, so they're just walking across the road and going to get their groceries. And that's not what has occurred.
Mr. Milburn, response, please.
Your worship, thanks very much for the opportunity to respond. When the plan was devised and approved by council, it anticipated about 100,000 new square feet of commercial space. So far from the projects of 33,000 square feet that has been approved through rezoning. So there's a significant amount yet to occur. That is correct. As with most of our centers, we are partway through development of those centers. No one project is going to deliver all of the pieces that finish that puzzle. But overall, we are working towards achieving, in this case, 100,000 square feet of new additional commercial floor space, plus hotel space, which there is a proposal tonight to talk about maintenance and rejuvenation of hotel opportunity. And so I just wanted to assure council, this plan does incorporate a significant amount of commercial space, but it's really focused on Capilano. So not within the peripheral area, for example. There isn't commercial anticipated in those areas, really in that frontage. And it's shown in the implementation plan as that kind of red mark. If you look at that drawing, showing where the commercial space is to occur.
I'm not talking about the site, I'm just talking about the general.
That is the general map I'm referring to from the implementation.
No, I'm just talking about the map up there of the whole Lower Capilano area. So those are my comments. I don't need a rebuttal from staff. I just am sharing my comments that what the OCP envisioned with this sustainable, densified portions of our community, in my opinion, has not been delivered. And, you know, future is not helping those that are there right now. And quite frankly, we had a number of residents come forward when we were talking about this, saying that, you know, it's too bad that they don't have the services that they thought they were going to have in this very dense part of our community. They're still driving down to Savon. So, and even when we 15, 20 years ago, and we were very slow to ever resolve the issues of the size of units down there. And I just fear that we're in that same direction. So those are my comments. I'm done. Until the next issue comes up.
Okay.
There's no further questions about the area.
We're good. Next.
Thank you. So as a transition here from the area update to the proposal, I'm going to show this very simplistic Mass Lane flyover video that the applicant has provided. So just to orientate you, the video starts off traveling east on Marine Drive from the Lionsgate Bridge. And then you see the Sentinel building here on your left, followed by the Travelodge site, the Park West development, and then the International Plaza here on the right side of the video.
Always happy when technology works.
Yeah.
We had this when we did Lower Mountain Highway.
Here we are just traveling down Marine Drive.
No traffic.
And here,
Simplified.
turning up Capilano Road here, you see the gas station on your right-hand side.
You do?
A Mass Lane.
Music at the gas station now.
And this is the proposed rental building coming into the screen here. You can see the commercial on the ground floor. We're approaching the Curling Road extension going through the site there. On the north side of the property, the hotel proposal for the hotel building. We're traveling at this separated bike lane here. And the bus stop is on your left-hand side. And we finished the video here on the northern side of the site at the northern plaza here. And this is the Crossroads intersection. So turning to the site itself, you'll see the aerial image on the right-hand side of the screen, and the site is outlined in red. It's approximately 2.5 acres in size, and it's occupied by 2 hotel properties with a total of 170 hotel rooms. So when the planning work was done for the area, the district commissioned a hotel study, which determined that there should be between 100 and 170 hotel units in the village center. To support this, the implementation plan outlined an increase in density from 1.75 FSR to 3 if a replacement hotel was provided for on the subject site. So the proposal is for a 150 room hotel, and the density is just over 3 at 3.36 FSR. The applicant has asked for the additional density to support the rental unit. Direction is being to expand the supply and diversity of housing, including rental housing, in accordance with the district's rental and affordable housing strategy, the OCP action plan, the housing task force recommendations, and the housing needs report. The 12-story hotel building is located on the north portion of the site, and it includes a restaurant at ground level fronting Capilano Road. The north portion also includes a bus stop, a public plaza on the north portion, a pocket park at the corner of Curling Road and Bar Avenue, and access through the underground via the new Curling Road extension. The south building is a 26-story rental building with 1 level of rooftop amenities, stepping down to a 7-story building. It includes 382 rental units, which would be secured in perpetuity. The south parcel also features a commercial component on the ground floor fronting Capilano Road, a pocket park along the east side of the site, indoor and outdoor amenity spaces, and access to the parkade from a new lane to the south of the property. Approximately 40% of the site is proposed to be dedicated to the district for roads, boulevard, bike lane, sidewalks, and plazas. So this slide shows a couple models from the northeast view. The proposed hotel building is in the foreground, and the proposed just behind there. And this is the last slide. We're looking at a couple more models. The image on the left shows the proposed development from the Curling Road extension, and the image on the right shows the proposal from the Crossroads extension. In terms of next steps, input provided by council this evening will assist the applicant in the preparation of a detailed application. Following the submission, a public information meeting will be scheduled, and staff will evaluate the proposal and public input prior to forwarding the project to council for consideration. Staff are here to listen to council's input on the proposal and to answer any questions.
Your presentation. Just some of my initial comments on it. I think that the hotel is a very significant and important deliverable for the municipality. I know that in the early years of the hotel, it's probably going to have a difficult time adequately replacing the very affordable hotel rooms that we had generally within the neighborhood. And that's concerning to me that we don't, between the Travel Lodge, the Grouse Inn, and this site, we've been able to support lots of like sports tournaments and things because the the nightly rates were much more reasonable. And I worry what the costs are going to be, although again, that's a market-driven business piece where if you don't fill the room, you don't get any money. So there's an incentive enough in place for them to try to fill the rooms. On the rental part, I was chatting with Councillor Murray earlier, and you know, I agree that I'd have a great deal of concern over that becoming short-term rentals. I'd like to see that and make sure that that is a longer-term rental in that space, that this is consistently provided purpose-built rental in that area. Again, I'm nervous about what the prices are likely to be at construction. We've seen some surprising rental rates in the $4.50 per square foot per month, which produced, I think, a $6,200 4-bedroom unit in Lynn Valley, $6,200 a month for the Emery place. And in lower Sealand, we've seen some similar rates with smaller size units, but in terms of $4.50 per square foot per month. And so, I'd be interested in what strategies we could employ to try to at least get a variety of financial impacts on those places. I think it's a very significant give back to the municipality in terms of the land and the laneage and the pocket park space. So I'm generally satisfied with the CAC contribution into it and what the general benefits are back to the community. And I'm not shocked by the size. I just want to make sure that the rental that we're getting in there is actually meeting local demand where it's possible can, rather than, really high-end premium bucks in the region. So I'd be interested in what strategies we can employ to mix that up a bit. Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation. With respect to the Lionsgate Village, I know that 57% of the approved units to date, over 1,300 units, are strata. And of those, only 41 affordable rental. So going forward, what my focus is going to be on rental, social housing and services. As you said, you've accomplished half your housing goals, third of your services goals. But as I say again, that half of the housing goals was accomplished with a preponderance of strata. Looking specifically then at 1634 to 1748, I do thank the proponent for coming forward with an all rental proposal, because that is a step in the direction towards balancing the housing mix in the area. And I'm assuming, I assumed it's long-term rental. I didn't think about it being short-term rental. I appreciate the need for the hotel. I note the transportation improvements that are being proposed, especially the enhancements to Curling Road. I know that 40% of the proposed site is going to be land dedication. When I looked at the proposal and I reflected on the fact that there's no social housing, affordable housing component, I want if we could enhance the CAC with some kind of a contribution to an affordable housing fund. Given the magnitude of the proposal, I thought that would be gracious on the part of the proponent. So I put that forward, proposal out there as a way of perhaps balancing the suggestion that the housing that's being put forward, it won't be affordable rental housing. It'll be rental housing, but some of it will be quite expensive, as Mayor Lewis put forward. But I do look forward to learning more about the proposal because of its mix of hotel services, a restaurant, a retail space, and 382 badly needed rental units. I am broadly supportive of it at this stage. Just one word about process. If this is something that our community wants and needs, I hope that it's something that moves through the process in a relatively swift way, such that the proponent learns relatively quickly whether it's something that's going to happen or not. So this comes back to the earlier part of our presentation. It would seem to me if we do approve the rezoning, this council makes the decision that this is something we want, it would be, and if the proponent is prepared to engage in the construction in a timely way, it would be a shame to see it languish for years and years and years in some kind of proposal approval purgatory, which is something that we have heard about, frankly, with respect to some proposals, notwithstanding what Mayor Little said about communication and so forth. It is something we've heard about. So that would be a comment I would make about process. If we are going to do this, let's hold ourselves to a timely method, timely process of approval. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Other members of council? This is the early input opportunity on this. I know you're just receiving a lot of this now, but we're looking for initial constructive feedback on it. Councillor Mauve, Councillor Mauve, go ahead.
Thank you. I actually met with the applicant last week, so thank you for the time to show me the project. He has most of my comments, but I'll just repeat it for the benefit of council. Positives are, I think that road allowance dedication through his property will really help to open up the development for traffic, open up people living on the west side of Capilano to be able to head eastbound. So hopefully that eliminates, or sorry, eases up some of the congestion around Capilano and Marine. I live in that area. I deal with this every day now because I have another part-time job in the city. So I think that roadway is critical. I also note that there's no displacement of existing tenants. I think that's big. You like the idea, there's a replacement hotel. And if I remember correctly, Byron, this is, price range is, anyways, it's not as affordable as units, but it's not a high end. So, you know, that is a benefit. I do note also the separate bike lanes. And there is supposed to be some bus pull-ins, but that really depends on whether TransLink is going to allow that. So those are the positives. There are some concerns that I have that I shared. The parking rate, I believe, is 0.4 per unit. So that's a concern for spillover parking potentially in the nearby residential area of Lower Cap. The idea of 100% rental, there's plus and minuses because these are market rentals, no low end of market. And I actually deal with that in my job right now. And, you know, I recognize that for the performance work, if you were to put in some low end of market, you probably have to raise the rent of the other one. So I get that balance. But I would have liked to have seen some units there that would address that. I also shared a concern about making sure that the CRUs are selected to meet the needs of the community. And in talking with the applicants, I believe right now they plan to retain that. So I shared my concerns and, you know, the experience we had at the Lions Gate site that, you know, that didn't quite hit the mark. So hopefully, you know, the applicant takes that away. But overall, this is, I think, a project that I can support this community based on the feedback. Thank you.
The beloved Denny's will be looking for a new home in about 3.5 years as well. Sorry, I had Councilor Forbes.
Just general broad comments that I'll make at the moment is that we do need hotel space, so I think that's a positive. We also need rental space, so that's a positive. I have concerns about the affordability, what the price range might be. But I mean, everything's changing, so it's pretty hard to predict very far out about that. And along with the affordability is keeping it long-term, not short-term, because I just attended that workshop a couple of weeks ago, and short-term has some really negative impacts on the community. So I would like this to be long-term. As Councillor Murray said, I had some concerns about the commercial space, that there be small commercial units so that we can maybe get more services in there, rather than just one or two larger big box type commercial spaces. I had a concern also about the parking ratios. I know that we're trying to have active transportation. I know that this corner, this area is on a very transit friendly area. But the hotel package, the parking provided in the hotel package compared to the units or the hotel rooms is 86%. And then when I go and look at the rental, the parking is 55%. And I would think that the rental needs more parking than the hotel, because I would think most of the hotel customers would be coming in by taxi, flying into Vancouver, and not necessarily driving a car to get there, but to get people coming from other areas like Whistler or something, from Victoria coming into Vancouver. So I have a slight concern about that and pushing the parking out into the neighborhood and the congestion. You know, we think this may relieve congestion on Capilano and Burnie, but it may just move it back a block off Capilano. So I'm concerned about that, but in general, I will say I love the idea of getting some hotel space and having more rental. I just want to work on the affordability and the impact to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what's been said here. I support the proposal. I think that we actually really do need a hotel, and I'm pleased to see this one. I like that it's moved to 100% rentals, but like others, I am concerned about the fact that there are no non-market or affordable rentals in there. And as the applicant is here, I was wondering if we can ask what in today's rates, what a 1-bedroom would be going for. Is that possible?
Mr. Milburn, Your Worship, we have heard from many applicants that we're at about $3.50 to $4 a square foot. We have seen in the marketplace even higher though on some elite units, but $3.50 to $4, and the applicant is fine.
I'm not sure what that translates to for a 1-bedroom.
500 square foot, $2,000 a month.
Is that about right?
That's at $4 per square foot per month. 500 square foot unit is $2,000 a month.
So yeah, I mean, what I'm wondering is if, we can look at any strategies for increasing the densification of it, making it a few stories higher, whatever, just so that we can get some affordability in here. And those are my comments.
I'm just looking. So 2-bed, 2-bath at 1632 Lionsgate Lane, apartment 1805 is $5,000.
How many square foot was that, sorry?
Too bad. It's probably like
1,000 square feet.
yeah, 945, not even.
A little over $5,000.
$5,000.
A little over
Yeah,
$5
$5,000.
per square foot.
Yeah. The 13th floor gets a little bit cheaper if you go down, 3850. Those top floors are where the money is because of the views, right? So have we done any shadowing? There's going to be some significant shadowing to those single family neighborhoods behind it's gonna be a wall because this is the first one that'll go. And then the next will go. If you want to get a room this summer at the Sure Stay, down next to the Petrocan on Capilano Road on July 13th for one night, you're gonna pay $319 a night. At the Holiday Inn, over at the bottom of Little Road, you'll pay $334. So we're going down in the number. It's 170 that we've got there right now between the two hotels, and we're going down to 150. So you're actually, there's a net loss in the hotel space. It's not like you're getting anything. You're not even replacing it 1-to-1. And you're gonna go up in price. So there will no longer be that, for, you know, the fisherman and his family to come and spend the weekend in town because his daughter has to go into the hospital, or those soccer groups. I mean, the community really, really has changed over the years. The eclectic nature of a very, at one time, in my opinion, diverse community has changed dramatically, where that gap is widening. It continues to widen. We have seen over 20 years, nothing has made it more affordable. Social housing and focusing on social housing, true social housing, not below market, not non-market, none of that. True social housing that is based on income or based on situation is the only housing that we are trying to get put back in our community to keep those people that will work in this hotel. You really got to ask yourself and cast your thoughts back to where we started, what we were trying to achieve. Have we done it? And we really haven't done that. We haven't really done a review. We haven't had staff come in and say, oh, let's go back and see how we did. Check off all those boxes. We are losing people. You know, when the thought of a sustainable community and trying to increase rental, because rental hadn't been built in years, was let's build a market, let's rent them out. And 2022 census, is that the last one, 2021? 2021 census showed that we had permitted 4,600 market units and our population increased by 2,000. So do the math on that one. What did that mean? That meant that people who were already living here were buying those units and they were renting them out because we allowed them to be rented out. We have a bylaw against short-term rental accommodation, but it's not enforced. And let's figure out how many Airbnb units that we have that are going for $450 a night. So there's a bunch of them, and Airbnb is not cheap anymore. It used to be a deal. Now it's freaking more expensive than the hotels in the city. So we have done nothing but create a perfect storm for investment. And there's nothing wrong with investment. I have an investment property. I have it at Whistler. But if you look at Whistler, Whistler's kind of like a really good example of, I can't rent my unit out. We've owned it for 30 years and I cannot rent it out nightly because it's in the wrong zone. It's in the B zone. The A zone is where you get to rent it out nightly, closer to the village. So on the peripheral, all that housing is for the staff. It's for the people that work there. So we rent it out to 4 people that work on the mountain. 1 runs a bike shop, 2 work on the mountain, 1 is in childcare. And that's who we rent it out to because there's rules. But we don't have those rules here. And you and I had that discussion, and you and I have had that discussion. And we need to have that discussion again, because one size does not fit all. It does not make it eclectic. It does not make it sustainable. And that's what this whole OCP was about, sustainability. And it is not sustainable. It will not be sustainable because we've pretty much taken all the land and already decided. So I think there's going to be issues with the neighborhood about shadowing. I think, you know, we're not adding any more hotel rooms, we're reducing them. Is that the amenity, the hotel?
I think the road.
And the road let down.
Oh, and on the road.
There's a restaurant and there's a retail space.
Yeah, but that's just part of the commercial. So that's going to be money back to the developer who will retain it.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna add, and the market rental units, and
Yeah, but market rental, like seriously, like we're looking at Lower Lonsdale, a a bachelor, $27.50 for a bachelor in Lower Lonsdale. Like, this is the nice area, like Capilano's the shishi, there's money there, right? Like, well, it is.
You live in the shishi.
Well, you don't, but I mean, Lower Capilano, the relationship to Park Royal and the bridge and Stanley Park and downtown and Capilano Suspension Bridge and Grouse Mountain. I mean, come on, this is like the little mecca, right? So this is where the money is, right? And we have done, I'm sorry, it's not you guys, but we've done a dismal job at creating an eclectic form of housing in this area. 41 units. Yeah, 3%. Kelly has obviously lived this for years. She's been demo evicted herself. She lives in the rental market. I live in the rental market. It's excruciating. It is excruciating. In 5 years, I will be paying $5,000 to live in a house that is, seriously, none of you would live in it. It is out of control. And we're not doing anything about it. We really aren't. We're developing more. And I will say that as we develop and all these new roads and plazas and pocket parks and all of this stuff is just ramping up that assessment value. It's just ramping up the wealth. And we are going to be on the hook, the district. And it's lovely that you're going to give us all these roads, but we get to look after them. And you guys are going to retain, and I say that with respect, and I'm sorry to point, you will be retaining the commercial properties, and that is another part of your business that has changed over the last 30 years. It never used to happen, and now it's part of the business. So we retain the rentals, we sell the market off, we retain the commercial. It's very lucrative, right? It's a big business, and that's why the government, federally and provincially, is holding up the economy with development and real estate. There's so much money to be made, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But my job is to make sure that we are diverse, and I don't think we're diverse. I really don't. I think we've lost our diversity, and I think the affordable rental, the social housing is at the bottom of our work plan, and the provincial government can't build it fast enough. They really can't. It's hard for them. They have to go through all their regulatory requirements. There's no money, there's no land, there's backlogs. I mean, it's just not working. As well intended as our initiatives are, if you look at social housing and affordable housing, we're losing the game. We really are. We're losing it. So I think the shadows are going to be a big issue. I do think we need to understand more about the road and that very expensive piece of property that we bought for a road. I don't understand that. I think we should look at an overpass of some sort. I think that would be we should have done that on Capilano Road or Capilano Suspension Bridge years ago. We backed the traffic up because we have somebody presses the button every 5 minutes to get people to walk across the street. I think we are going to lose the last of the hotels. We had one at Park Royal. We used to have a bunch on the road. We had them at Lower Lonsdale. They're all super expensive. Those groups will not come here anymore. And we're gonna have all these turf fields and they won't have any place to stay. And I think it is a shame that we don't really work harder at trying to figure out a way to get more social housing in the western part of the municipality. I don't get it. The Seymour for years has taken all the social housing. We had the land, but there's just been a patchwork. And it's hard to look at this again when the very people that need the most housing are the bottom ones on the list. And I don't know how to fix that. I really don't, because there's no land. So we have to, put it into these projects, but we haven't done any of it really, like 3%, honestly. And it's not your fault. It's council's fault.
Thank you. I've got councillors Back and Ma. Councillor Back, your comments?
So if we wanted to have a percentage, say 10% of this building, of the rental building be below market housing, what would that take from us? How much, like say, 10% of the units, what would we have to give in terms of bonus?
Well, through your worship, when a detailed application is submitted, the applicant would provide a pro forma analysis. And that would basically determine, if there is any scope to provide any affordable housing. So I think it'd be really at that time where we'd have to have that discussion. Thank you.
So I guess, I too would support some more affordable units in this particular development, something that is below market. But we have to realize that we would have to give something in order to make that viable, right? Pro formas are not, at the end of the day, there has to be a business case there for it. I think 382 units of purpose-built rental housing right in a town center that surely needs it would be quite a big benefit to our community. And of course, it's going to be new market rental rents, so it's going to be more expensive. But that will, over time, those rents will come down. I think that will also free up some of the older rental stock in our community as newer homes come online. And so I think there's a lot of value in that, and that's probably the biggest reason I generally supportive of this proposal. I think the improvements to active transportation in this particular area around that intersection of Capilano and Marine would be huge. That's a horrible area to ride a bike right now. It's a bit of a death trap, actually. So I think the improvements that are part of this proposal would be really valuable. Yes, excited to see more commercial space, which we need down there. And I hear the comments about maybe some smaller commercial units, which would cater to a wider variety of businesses for the people that are living right in our town center there. But I think having a restaurant would be a great addition, as well as obviously the new hotel, which, yes, it's net less rooms than we have currently, but I think it'll be a nicer, newer hotel that, from what I understand and speaking to Byron Chard, is that it's not going to be, 5-star kind of hotel. It will be sort of more that tournament hotel where families can come with teams and that type of thing. So I think it'll fit nicely there. So I would say largely overall, I'm quite supportive of this proposal. And if we want to talk about adding, some social housing into it, I would be supportive of that conversation as well. Being realistic about what that's going to mean in terms of more density.
Councillor Mah.
Similar comments. We're going to go low in the market. If, as a council, we're prepared to apply some density, I would probably support that. It's just leaving it for our real estate guys to do that negotiation. There's some talk about hotels, we're losing 20. But people forget that we lost 2 hotels across the street that weren't replaced. They got 0. So, 150 coming back after losing 170. It's not that bad when we lost the 2 across the street. One thing that was interesting that I noticed in terms of the rentals, the upper floors, that's where the amenities are going, because this isn't being sold to strata. So, you're not getting the, necessarily more value up top. So that was interesting that, there is something, I like the level of detail that the developer or the applicant looked at to say, hey, we'll put our pool or whatever up top, or maybe not a pool, but yeah, okay, sorry about that. But your fitness center or something up top, so everyone could enjoy it. And that to me was, just a small feature to show that, this applicant is looking at that level of detail. It's not just like, hey, we're gonna maximize the rentals by putting on the higher, or charging higher rents at the upper levels. We're gonna put something that benefits everyone. So I thought that was kind of good. And that's it. This time around. Thank you.
I was just gonna,
I thought there was going to be a pickleball court on it.
well, that's still looking located. That little, yeah. I was just gonna add on this. I mean, I don't know enough about the economy of the hotel market on the North Shore, but when you're in your peak time, there's nowhere near enough. The prices go catastrophically high. But through most of the shoulder seasons and rainy seasons, they're actually really affordable. So
124
so
right now.
yeah, so the sure stay is $130 tonight for a unit. If my wife kicks me out tonight, that's not a bad option, I guess. But because there's a significant incentive for them to fill the unit, if they're going to be bringing cleaning staff on anyway, they've got to fill the unit even at whatever price. So the secondary resellers are getting you a pretty good price on some of that stuff. obviously not, I think it was, we don't, Gavin's not here. He was talking about trying to get a place overnight in Whistler during the spring break. And the cheapest place he found was $900 in an actual hotel room. The pod was available for $420. It was him and his wife and his dog, and he thought the pod wouldn't really get so hot. And so there will never be enough at the peak times. And the economics about whether it's viable or not is probably whether you can fill a room for 20 nights in a month and make it work. And to do that, I don't know. I haven't really had a discussion about ballroom or convention or rentable event space in there, what impact that would have on parking there. Where I've really wrestled with this in the general neighborhood though is, I mean, I think it's going to be one of our long-term regrets that in the lower cap neighborhood generally, Travelodge notwithstanding, there's very little non-market mixed into it. But I also have to balance that with the fact that 10% off of new in this neighborhood is not attainable or affordable. You'd really have to be
social.
Partnered up deep dive social situation to actually deliver something. So $10 off at $4, $4.50 per square foot, or $5 per square foot is the one that was quoted, is not actually going to help a worker stay close by. It's still going to be that premium buck. And so I don't know, I'm still torn over that because I definitely think we need to be baking the non-market options into the projects in this neighborhood. It's a long time regret that we don't have more mix in the rest of the neighborhood.
We have that
But
lot.
At the same time,
We have that lot.
10% off of the prices you're gonna get in this neighborhood are like, you can attain those 5 blocks away. You can attain that difference of 10% off of new by going 5 blocks away from the space, or you can go, like, and so I said, why should we be pumping the public benefit in to get such an almost immeasurably low benefit, rather than maybe pumping it in where there is a partnership with the provincial government or someone else. But then again, that may sanitize this whole neighborhood from it. These are just my musings, generally speaking. I'm not putting this entirely on your shoulders. This is a regret that I have for the development of the whole neighborhood. Maybe the periphery area on the east side is a better opportunity for a partnered up project that may be able to achieve some affordability with the government. But I still think that that's got to be the goal in this whole general neighborhood, is to right some wrongs. But
2 things, we have that lot that we want to use for a road, but I think we have to look at some creativity around that and exactly what,
I'm open.
and we need to look at that. But I think,
Wedded to the road, and frankly, I think you're so close to the other intersections in that corridor that
You can figure it out.
1901 could very well be an off-grade crossing or some other thing.
but I think the
Open to that.
I think the hotel concept that you're talking about is, yeah, you can rent it for $130 tonight, but you put a new hotel in there and you're staying there and you're renting a car and you're driving to Whistler. That's what you're gonna do. Like, you're not gonna go up there because you're never gonna be able to afford it, but you'll be able to stay down here and you'll drive up, right? So, I mean, there's lots of problems with Whistler. There's problems when the lineup to even get into it is at Brom Lake. I mean, it is completely unsustainable, that community. You know, when you're waiting in line for 2 hours just to get up to the top of the mountain and then another hour, and you're sitting in 3-hour car lines.
I would imagine this is still heavily dominated by locally bound traffic.
Well, it doesn't matter
Downtown
whose
Stanley
traffic
Park,
it is, it's traffic.
you mentioned, and the suspension. So those are the areas that I'm kind of torn on. I don't see any other hands from council at this time, but it sounds like there isn't a great amount of shock at the scale. It's more a question about getting the mix right for parking, for units.
And the impact on the local neighborhood behind, because there is a single family neighborhood behind that is going to be directly impacted by something like this because of that shadow. It's going to be significant.
Like late day shadow at 26 is going to be significant.
Yeah.
I think you want the density, one to go higher, so then that's the trade-off, so.
I don't want density.
No, I don't want to go higher.
Who said anything about that?
I did.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, council, I don't see any further comments at this time. I hope that aids the applicant and staff in their deliberations and considerations on it. I certainly saw your head nodding when we talked about short-term rentals being not for this site. I really appreciate that. Once again, thank you to the staff for the preparation for the meeting tonight. We do appreciate all of the work that you've done. At this point, I will accept adjournment, having completed the work. Thank you, Council Court, accepted. Everybody, thank you for all your hard work tonight across all 3 meetings. And I know that this was going to be a tricky night on the agenda that we had. So I thank you all for your patience. Have a great night and hope